Hello, friends. Thank you very much for hanging out with us this afternoon. I am Scott Hanselman, and this is Scott Hunter. And we are collectively the Lesser Scotts. We work about 16 people down from Scott Guthrie. This is not a joke, they do refer to us as
the
Lesser Scotts, or collectively Scots the Lesser. It's like attorneys general. So if you find yourself asking what the Lesser Scots think, then that's how you refer to us in parts of speech. Welcome to Build. I have already converted these slides to a universal app, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. So we're going to talk about ASP.NET today and tomorrow, vNext.
And Azure.
And Azure. So all things web. And if you're interested in Azure, if you're excited about Azure, I really would encourage you guys to check out Azure Friday. You can go to friday.azure.com. It's on all the podcasts. It's on iTunes. Check it out. And this is basically me getting taught Azure by the people who built Azure. So it's no marketing. It's just me learning how to do Azure so I don't lose my job. So that's good.
Yeah?
Yeah. This is my actual boss, too, by the way. So we're going to talk about ASP.NET, and we're going to talk about web tools. We're going to talk about the Azure SDK. And you know that Guthrie, the father of ASP.NET, he's kind of floating away because he's becoming more and more powerful and influential. He just got promoted to an EVP.
Yes, head of cloud and enterprise.
He was a CVP. Now he's an EVP. He will later become a GHIJ.
ZDP, right?
ZDP. And this is Guthrie pre-executive vice president, and this is post-executive vice president. So really excited about him moving up.
It's like a Hunger Game kind of thing.
It is kind of like the Hunger Games. So we've been talking about OneASP.NET for a while. You may have seen slides like this before, because OneASP.NET is more than just these things. It also includes you and your open source projects and the things that you're working on. So the umbrella goes around your products as well. You may have heard recently, and you'll hear again right now, that we have changed the MVP program so that someone could become a Microsoft MVP in ASP.NET based solely on their contributions to open source. So if you know of a great project that has got a lot of support around the community and you feel that those project organizers need to be represented, feel free to nominate them, because they don't need to be a great speaker or write a book. They can just have a really awesome changelog, and we'll recognize them. So we've been kind of having a nice cadence with ASP.NET and Web Tools for a while now, releasing every 6 months or so since 2002. We are continuing with that strategy. We've got ASP.NET and Web Tools 2013.2, the release candidate, out today, and we're going to see all of our demos are going to be from that. Going forward, you're going to continue to see this cadence going. We're going to have a modern web focus, updated client-side MVC, JavaScript support, things like that. We've shown it to some of our friends. Some of my personal friend and mentors saw it and really appreciated some of the work that was done. His Holiness the Dalai Lama enjoyed that very much. I also showed the fall release to my mother-in-law, and she absolutely loved it, and we're pretty excited about that.
That was actually Guthrie's reaction to what we're doing in the fall as well.
So yeah, that's cool. Whenever Guthrie comes by, though, and he wants to check out all of our work and stuff, we pretty much see him coming, and then we get out of his way. Now, we're releasing these updates every 6 months or so, but we're also doing this labs. You're maybe familiar with Mads Christensen's Web Essentials. He's going to talk a little bit about that later this week as well. That's going to be released kind of every 2 months. Kind of think of it as ASP.NET and Web Tools labs. We're going to be pushing the limits on what we can do by adding these extensions. And then if they do well, we'll graduate them. So then those things will graduate, like we graduated the Less editor into the main product.
Yeah, and the SAS editor.
And the SAS editor as well. So things like Browser Link are going to continue to move forward. Why don't you talk a little bit about...
This is what we shipped in October. This is VS 2013. We built a brand new identity system for ASP.NET. We had the same one since 2005. And this one's really modern, using claims-based authentication. It's no longer tied to SQL Server 2000 with stored procedures. Much more modern and much more pluggable. We switched all of our templates to Bootstrap. I don't know about you, Scott, but I can't write CSS. Maybe you're better than I am. So Bootstrap is awesome because I don't have to write CSS. I just use Bootstrap class attributes on my code, and I get the styles for me, and I can import styles. One ASP.NET, which we'll show in a little bit. Historically, people have always thought that you had to make a choice. You had to choose MVC or Web API or Web Forms, and then you were stuck, because you actually were stuck. And now you're unstuck. You can basically create any project. When you create a project, you can select what technologies you want. If you forget the technology, you can then go and add one after the fact, so you're not stuck. We took the scaffolding that we had scaffolding in MVC and Web API, but we didn't have it in Web Forms or any other part of our product. It's now all across the entire product. And when you do file new, we used to have these weird options like internet or intranet, and those meant a bunch of security things were going to get thrown in your app. Now it's you click a configuration button for authentication, and you can choose what you want. A lot of Azure stuff came in, which we'll demo today. You can do things like remote debugging. You can view your websites inside of the Server Explorer, mobile services, a bunch of stuff there that we'll demo a whole bunch of. For Web API, we added support for cores. That allows you to call your API from a different domain and have that work in JavaScript. We added attribute routing in all of our stack for people that don't want to write ugly route tables and would rather actually just, when they're looking at their controllers, actually put the URLs right there. EF got a huge push. We added support for async, so you can use it with the await keyword. If you're using ASP.NET, you should always be using await with EF. We had support for stored procs. You can actually, with code first, use stored procs, and we'll actually generate the stored procs for you if you're using migrations. And as we move into a cloud world, we know your application might be talking to something in the cloud that might not always be there, and so we added a retry mechanism in as well. Brand new HTML editor, browser link, which we'll show today, it's really cool. Browser link allows you to actually work in VS, and instead of having to like relaunch your app every time you make a change, you can basically push a button and we'll update the browser automatically for you. And AngularJS class IntelliSense.
And actually taking off of your scaffolding comment, pushing scaffolding all the way through, you can go up now. We're going to have a bit.ly bundle with all the links of everything we talked about, so don't worry about taking notes. But we've got web form scaffolding that we're going to show on GitHub. So open source, so if you wanted to make your own scaffolding, you could go and change that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a boilerplate of how you would write your own scaffolder. So in the scaffolding dialog box in 2013.2 RTM, we'll actually have a button where you can find third-party scaffolds right from the scaffolder. Identity, we actually didn't finish all the identity stuff in the October release, and so we're finishing up the work we left off. We have two-factor auth. So if you really want to secure your app, you've got two-factor auth built in. We've got account lockout. We have account confirmation via email. We have password reset. So all the auth stuff is really baked now. For web forms, as Scott said, we added scaffolding. We have a data source control for EF6, and we have dynamic data support for EF6 as well. SignalR gets a Android client, some Xamarin support, loses its dependency on jQuery. And for Web API, we added, we continue to fix bugs and make the attribute routing better. And for people that want to do binary, we have a binary formatter now. EF, we're going to demo this. We used to have some power tools that were kind of bolt-ons for EF, and we actually moved those power tools directly in the box now. And they let you do a bunch of cool things. If EF Code First has really caught on, and we know that some people actually want to start with a database, and so we let you actually start with a database and roll back into the code. And then finally, we've got better support for less. We have a JSON editor now. We actually have a PowerShell editor as well. And if anybody's ever tried to write a phone app with the Windows Phone Emulator and try to call Web API, it's dang near impossible. And that is solved in this update as well.
Yep. So we're going to take a look at those things, and we're going to explore what's going on in Azure. This is just kind of a general structure. This is actually my perspective on how Azure fits together. And because you switched away?
I switched away.
I guess we won't be talking about that anytime soon.
So this is
my boss.
This is the one ASP.NET thing. We used to have like the multiple ASP.NET, and then if there wasn't enough multiple ASP.NET, if you chose an ASP.NET, you got more ASP.NET. So this is what one ASP.NET was designed to solve, was all that goop. We now have one ASP.NET. I can select my technology. I'll use web forms in this case. If I wanted to, I could also just go check on other things. If I forget to check these things on, I can actually do that after the fact by right-clicking on my project and saying I want to add MVC or I want to add Web API. Something else that's new in this update is if you're using Azure, if you don't have an Azure account, you should get one. You get 10 free websites with Azure, and so we make it really easy to build a remote site in Azure for you here. So if I check this box, as part of my file new, we'll actually create an Azure website for me as well. If I wanted to, maybe a website doesn't give me enough control, and Scott's got slides that'll show the control model in a second. I can also select a virtual machine, at which point we'll actually create an Azure virtual machine. And what's cool about this is we actually go to that virtual machine, we install IS, we install web deploy, we install the remote debugger, we install all the stuff so you can actually use the virtual machine pre-set up to run ASP.NET. So in this case, I'm just going to do file new website. I'll do OK. It's going to ask me where I want to be. I'll go to the West Data Center. I don't need a database. And I'll press OK. So it's going to create my new project here. And then after it's done creating my project, it's going to actually go and build the right stuff in Azure for me.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
I like the indeterminate progress bar. No idea when it's going to be done. No, oh, it's done.
Because we don't know.
We have no idea.
We truly don't know.
We have no idea. This is new.
So this is new. So one of the things that I always complain to my team about is, let's zoom the metro screen.
Sorry.
I don't use Visual Studio to publish my applications for production. I might use it to publish when I'm debugging and stuff like that, but not for production. So what we've done is when you go through the file new process, we now create PowerShell scripts for you. And the PowerShell scripts support creation, deployment, all the kinds of stuff you might want to do. And then you can actually run these PowerShell scripts, modify them yourselves. To make it easy to modify, you might notice in Visual Studio here, I've got colorization for PowerShell. So we've actually built a PowerShell editor into Visual Studio as part of this release.
It's the little things.
The little things. So just for grins, I will just show how easy this is. I will, this web form thing is going to blow up my demo. I'm going to publish this to, actually, let's not even publish yet.
What's wrong? What's it do? The low resolution is confusing?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up one of my files. And let's say I did publish this to Azure. How would I do things like tracing and diagnostics? I think the building's going to fall down on us.
I think, yeah, someone is in the rafters. They're going to drop down and attack us. I think they really are in that tube up there. They're going to be behind me in a second. They'll just be right here. Okay, what are we doing? I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get traces to work.
It's in diagnostics.
ASP diagnostics.
Oh.
I'll just skip that.
Then you're messed up.
I am messed up. But let's do this. Let's write a little bit of code here.
Do the fully qualified.
Yeah.
So cute when managers try to code.
So cute when VS is not cooperating with me.
Clearly Visual Studio's problem. There may be a trouble between the chair and the keyboard.
So what we're going to do is we're going to publish this app to Azure. You're killing me. And before I publish,
when my demo doesn't work, you can yell at me.
This happened at MVP Summit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to publish a debug version of my app. So this should actually happen pretty fast. It's going to go out to Azure. I have an Azure all configured because of that file new. And so now I'm actually running up. Just gets better.
Hey-o!
I honestly don't know what's going on.
Hey, man.
I'm going to let you go back to your slides, and I'll fix this.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and let Scott Hunter debug that demo.
Because it needs help.
You feel bad for interrupting me before when I was on this slide. It was going to be amazing. And now I've completely lost my flow, sir. This is my perspective on how Azure works, and when I'm trying to teach people about Azure, I think about that everything's based on storage, and then virtual machines and VHDs and things like that all live in Azure storage, and then websites live on top of virtual machines. But sometimes when you see boxes stacked on top of boxes, it gets a little bit confusing, and it's not, it's like, well, there's a lot of boxes, and do the colors mean anything? I don't really know. So I came up with another way to explain it to myself. If you're doing things like virtual machines, You can do anything you want. You basically own it. You can do whatever you want. The operating system is managed. It's just like getting a puppy. You have to keep it alive, and you have to make sure it stays watered or whatever. I don't have a dog, but I assume that they require water. But you can do anything that you want. If you want to run frickin' Erlang, you can do that on a virtual machine. Now, if you do a website that's a platform as a service, and that's what Scott is working on right now, you have a limited things that you can do, .NET, Node, PHP, Python, but then Azure manages the updates for you. Looking at it with the things like cloud apps, you see that there's an interesting bracket there where cloud apps give you Azure managed operating system updates, but you still have full control over what languages that you want. Now, I like websites a lot. I like websites because I like to trash my hotel room and then see it put back together when I come back. So think of Azure websites as trashing your hotel room, basically. You don't have to think about anything. You just, they just rip the bed apart just to see, because it's back the way it was. But your virtual machine's like your first house, right? So if you mess up your first house and then you come home later, it's still going to be messed up. You have to think about the gutters and all of the different things you need to manage. So I'm not a big fan of virtual machines just because I'm not a big fan of responsibility. I taught my kids that recently, by the way, so now they quote everything. Hi, Dad. I'm not sure that's the way we're supposed to use that, son. And then, renting a room from a friend is kind of that middle one there, where it's a little bit of you have some responsibility, some things will be taken care of for you, and some other things will not. How are you, sir?
I am great.
Boom.
Boom. Let's go to 7. Okay.
Did you reboot Azure, or what did you do?
I rebooted Azure.
Okay, good deal.
So I've got this app, and
are you on 7?
I am on 7.
Yep, cool.
Okay. So I've got this trace that Scott Hanselman crashed here.
No one is ever going to notice that any of this happened.
Here.
Don't even worry about it.
And if I'm going to run this in the cloud, how do I actually look at these trace messages? Well, we actually have always written the log files on the actual physical machine, but that's kind of a pain to go look at. You have to go FTP or look at the machine. It'd be much cooler if I could just come in and say, let's go to my settings. I'll set my application logging to show warnings. I'll save the change here. Something's going on back there.
I think the people who are streaming are not realizing that they're actually building another conference next door.
We will go ahead and publish this. The app's up. And now what I can do is I can go back to the Azure node over here. And I'll click on my application, and I will say use streaming logs. Mm-hmm. And so we'll go out to Azure and connect. And now, when that trace actually occurs, you can see people in the audience are hitting the URL. We get the trace warning.
So wait a second. You didn't actually go back. I thought you were going to go and hit refresh. You just waited for these people to try to hurt us.
Exactly. We've been hurted.
Always happens.
Now what's cooler is tracing is one thing, but maybe that's not enough. What if I went and
that's probably what happened the first time.
Put a breakpoint.
Did the thing crash because they hit it too fast?
That was a crash at TechEd a couple years ago.
Yeah.
What if I wanted breakpoints? So I actually put a breakpoint in here. And I'm going to right-click on my app, and I am going to say Attach Debugger. So the first time I do this, it's going to take about 10, 15, 20 seconds, because we're going to go actually out to Azure. My app's running in a shared hosting environment, and we can actually run the debugger securely in that model. So it's actually setting up the security and all this stuff, so I can only trace my application. And of course, now that I said it would take 15 or 20 seconds, there we go.
Or longer than 15 or 20
that.
seconds.
Bingo, breakpoints. So
live production
we're running
debugging.
Breakpoints live in the cloud.
Nice.
And this feature, I showed the feature with Azure websites.
Yeah.
This feature works with Azure Cloud Services. And with the new file new that we just showed, if you create a virtual machine, we do all the right stuff so you can actually attach the debugger to a VM as well. So we support VMs, cloud services, or websites. So every Azure Assets has full debugging support.
And that last part is really important. I don't think people maybe realize that you can go file new ASP.NET website, make a VM, and we will get that VM ready for you to deploy as if it were a website. So you do get the choice about whether you want to be a homeowner or trash your hotel.
So let's show one more thing here. Get my breakpoint. And why don't you talk about long-running applications, or
Yeah, so
while I start doing, I'll start the demo.
Yeah, so I wrote an application. I worked on DOS Blog with Clemens Vasters, and one of the things that DOS Blog does, it's an ASP.NET 2 application. It still actually runs my blog. Is we do a bunch of background worker thread stuff. So in global ASA, we just fire up a bunch of background.
So I'm going to create a console app and add it to my solution.
And we did that because there's a bunch of kind of zip up logs at midnight. It's just all that kind of stuff that you need to do that's peripheral but related to your web application. And it's just not a good idea to be taking up threads in order to do that. I've even seen people do things where they'd say, on every 100th hit to the site, borrow that, and then run over here and do something, and maybe the user won't notice it. Phenomenally bad idea. So the idea of a background web job, not a full worker role, not a complete background service, but something that's got one foot in the website and a little bit leaning towards worker roles would be a good idea, and that's what web jobs is. Are you doing a web job?
Yeah, so this is a web job. A web job is all it is a console app. This allows you not only to just write web apps and push the web apps to the cloud, I can just write a console app. And so I've got a simple console app that all it does is loops and writes a number to the screen. So what I can do is I can go to my solution, and I'm going to right-click on my web app, and I'm going to go to Add, and I've got this thing called Windows Azure Web Job. And I'm going to associate that console app with my Windows Azure Web Job. Say I want to run it all the time. I can also run it on a schedule or on triggers, but I'm going to set it to be continuous. And then all I'm going to do after doing that is I'll republish my app. And so now, not only am I just copying a web app to the cloud, I'm actually copying a console app that I can run as well. So I can run background jobs and tasks inside of this. So now that that's running, I can jump over to the Azure portal here.
Is it really running a console app, or is there some
It's really running a console app.
Okay.
And we'll show that. So I'm going to go to my app running in the cloud, and there's this new tab called Web Jobs.
Is that bad that I'm worried that it's running a console app?
I don't think so.
No?
There's my web job. It's initializing.
Oh, there it is, running.
It's running. Now what's cool is there's actually a dashboard for this guy. So I can click that, and it's going to take me to a dashboard where I can actually see what my app is doing. So there you go. I've got the actual output from the console window of the app running in the cloud showing up there.
Ooh.
So in the past, if you actually, Azure had a feature called worker roles.
Right.
But worker roles required you to write special apps that actually used Azure SDKs and had weird publishing models and mechanisms. This just lets you take any app. And I'm showing an app. You can also write PowerShell scripts. You can run JavaScript scripts. You can run Python. Any application type that's supported inside of websites supports this.
And this is in no way to take away from worker roles. It's a different idea, right? This is something that's lightweight, that doesn't require a lot of the complexity of a worker role, and then just runs on the same machine within the context of that website.
And I've got one other variant of this that I've got running as well, which is we also have an SDK for web jobs. Mm-hmm. And the SDK for web jobs, there's a bunch of features in Azure like storage with blobs, there's queues, there's tables. And I got a simple app that I wrote. It's another one of these web jobs. And you'll notice that it's got the main starts up, and it starts this job host. And it says run and block. And what happens then is I've got these methods. And what I do is I put attributes on the input parameters for my method. So I've got queue input. And what that means is that's going to go look for a queue in Azure called test queue. And anytime something comes into that queue, it's going to call my function with that message. And then I've got Twilio set up here, and I'm actually going to have that thing send a text message to my phone. So
process queue is getting called automatically. They're reaching into your web job as a trigger when queue input and passing that in.
Yes.
You may have seen us talk about this and refer to it as simple batch.
Yes, it was called simple batch before.
In the past.
So I've got a simple app that I wrote that takes advantage of this.
Where's your phone?
In my pocket.
All right.
This ought to be fun. OK, so I took this app and added a send here.
You know everyone's going to send you mean notes.
I know. So I sent a message there. And now let's go back to the portal. And let's go find this app.
The one that stopped.
And it stopped on purpose.
Oh, it stopped on purpose. Oh, you're queuing them up.
Actually, I should have shown the queue.
You fancy. Oh, and there's your message.
Hi, handsome. I just showed up on the phone.
Nice.
So that works. And what's cool is when I look at this.
Oh, hang on. I want to see the mean things that people are saying. I don't want people are. You have a marriage proposal.
So here we go. So now the dashboard for web jobs now shows my method, and it shows all the times the method's run. And you can see there's more coming, so it's actually showing that. I can actually click one of these, drill down, and show the output of this. Now the nice thing here
Some of these are really sweet, though. Hashtag dreamy.
So
pretty sure that was for me.
the job is stopped now, so. But anyways, the cool thing is you got that dashboard, and that dashboard shows all the invocations of this. If it had crashed, the dashboard would have had full stack dumps and all that kind of stuff. I can even replay the message again. So I could go work on my web job, fix my web job, come back to the dashboard, and try one again. So that's web jobs.
Cool. All right, so let's take a look at this here. We're looking here at browser link. Now, you may have seen, of course, that you can pick your browsers up here. This is a nice improvement as well. You see this? So I can go and say, check this website on a Windows phone and have it fly out, which is a nice improvement.
It's better than that. If you actually select the Windows phone with this version of the Update 2 on,
right,
we'll actually launch the phone, launch the browser, go to the page.
That's hot.
So you can actually launch a page directly in your phone with VS.
Shiny. And if you go to more emulators, you can go to a web page and download other things like Electric Plum's iPhone simulator.
Yeah, this is all pluggable.
Yeah, yeah. So next to it, though, is this button here that says No Browsers Connected. So I'm going to go and just run that. And I'm going to declare tab bankruptcy. Is that OK?
That's perfect.
And then I'm going to put this over here. And I think running large fonts at a low resolution is really always a good idea.
We should reboot and fix that.
So yeah, we should probably not reboot. So within here, I could go and hit refresh. See, it says one browser connected, Chrome is connected. And if I go and hit refresh in Visual Studio, you see it's pushing that refresh out. It's talking to Chrome. Now I want to change this text right here that says ASP.NET. I could go in here and hit Control-Shift-F and go looking for it and try to find out where that text might be. I'm pretty sure it's... No, that's not it. It's in there somewhere. Or I could hit Control. I'm inside of the browser right now. I'm going to hit Control, and this bar gets injected inside of the browser. And I'm going to hit Inspect. And as I roll over divs, it's actually communicating back to Visual Studio and opening up exactly where that thing is.
If you know about ASP.NET SignalR, it's actually using ASP.NET SignalR technology under the cover.
Right.
Visual Studio is running a SignalR host, and that's how they talk to each other.
And that's pretty cool, but it's not like deeply cool. So I'm going to click on Design, and then I'm going to click here, and then I'm just going to start typing in the browser. And
well, actually, go, type in the browser, then go back to the Visual Studio and show that the undo buffers work the same way.
it's good that you were here.
That's good.
I don't know what I would have done.
You would have crashed.
No, I hit save. I was cheating. I didn't want you to succeed. Sorry, by the way, funny story.
This is true.
Last time we were on stage together, a bunch of tweets came out, and one of them said, "Looks like we got angry Scott today." They were referring to my relationship with my boss. This is regular. This is regular Scott.
We talk like this all the time. So
He is so mean. If I want to change the background color here, I'm going to hit F12 Tools. And I'm showing you in Chrome because I want to show you that it works everywhere and that there's no plugins. This is, of course, browser non-specific. We're agnostic. We use all the browsers. And you know how when you want to change the color of something, you change it in the DOM, and you get it perfect, in the browser, and he's like, okay, don't move. And then you go and try to figure out how to make it work over in the real world. What if you could click F12 auto sync and then go down here and type in background color red, and then as you're typing, have it show up back in your CSS on the left? I want to make sure that you're clear what we're doing here. OK? So I'll put in background color, yeah, and red. Oops. What's happening?
So the idea here is we want you as developers to be able to use whatever tool you feel most comfortable with. If it's the F12 tools in the browser, use those. We'll save to VS. If it's VS, work in VS, and we'll push it back to the browser. You can work on either side.
Yeah, I'm going to break some things now. We're running daily builds of everything, just to be, because we like to live like that. And I'm going to go in here, and then I'm just going to pick this tiny Legend of Zelda sword. And I'm going to just choose from the rich color palette that Visual Studio has made available to us. And as I put colors in here and hit refresh, those colors get pushed back out to the real world as well. So it's two-way F12 auto sync. That's part of Web Essentials, and you can get that now.
Yeah, you can download this today.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you load it to the browser? Will it do multiple browsers?
We can't do multiple browsers. No, yeah, absolutely. So I could go like this, close that up, make it, because
resize him just below here.
Here, let me just resize this because it's good job, by the way, with your resolution. Well, do I have to look forward to this as well when I become an older individual?
You already are an older individual.
That's true. So. I am pretty old, yeah. Yes, so now that is set to blue, and I can hit refresh, and you see it's refreshing everywhere.
Both browsers.
And it would refresh the Windows Phone and the iPhone and as many as I want. And we're working on getting that to work out to devices that may be on your desk as well.
Yeah, you could actually attach your phone to your
and refresh
thing, and it'll refresh all the way through.
Which would be also very, very cool. Shiny. Cool. And we talked a little bit about how we got the PowerShell syntax highlighting in there. We also have JSON syntax highlighting as well.
Yep.
And Mads and friends have also been so cool as to put in JSON schema, which apparently is a thing. And it's not XML at all.
It's going to become XML. I see XML coming.
The sins of the father are not being repeated in any way.
WS JSON.
No, in all seriousness, it's WS, yeah, JSON, absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be the best, yes. Nothing could possibly go wrong. No, seriously, though, we've got that now. So here I've got a schema associated with my JSON file, and I'm getting IntelliSense. So you get this now as well, too, where you can use this standard. This is not a Microsoft standard.
Nope.
And get IntelliSense for your JSON as well, and including syntax highlighting, which is shiny. Let's switch over to...
So PowerShell, JSON, we got it all.
Which of these, could you open a few more of these, by the way? Which one has Angular?
There's
better names. I think we need a
generator.
ninth.
There's one called something generator.
We need a ninth Visual Studio. Okay. That's when it goes to heck. 8 Visual Studios you can run just fine. 9, not a chance.
VS 2013 will do 25.
You can run 25?
Yeah.
The only way that you learn that you can only open 25 is by opening 26.
Of course.
Yeah. You make me want to go and check the task manager and see how we're doing here. Yeah, we're doing pretty well, actually. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it does well.
All right. So this is an Angular application. We're using Angular, and we're starting to support more and more things. You're going to see things like Markdown, the Markdown editor inside of Visual Studio with split screen, which is yummy. Smattering of applause for the one individual who cares about Markdown. But no, seriously, it's cool. And if you're editing your readme.txt file for Angular, you care about that kind of stuff. So I could go and do something like in Angular. Let's see if I can do, where's my testimonial factory? Where would I be? Down here, right? So this is a factory here. I'll go and say, find all references, see my different Angular modules and my name controller and where those things are happening. And then within, for example, testimonial factory, I could say .get testimonial, right, like I did with the var t there, and then hit dot. And because it's actually running the JavaScript, this is really important. And this is a very important thing to point out the difference between IntelliSense and autocomplete, because I typed it earlier in the day, sense. some editors just notice that you typed something before and they say, oh, you probably typed that thing again. Here we're actually calling getTestimonial with, inside of Angular and then returning back the objects and then giving you IntelliSense on those, including the type of the object, in this case things like author or things like quote, and then deeper types like integer and string and datetime and things like that within JSON. So if you spend any time as a front-end web developer, you might want to think about spending more time inside of VS because it's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And this is just the start. We're going to go really deep on this
and
stuff.
Actually, we don't have so much time, but we've also got class IntelliSense for CSS, for Angular, so you're going to go ng dash and get drop-downs for all of that stuff as well. And we're going to try to support as many client-side MVC frameworks as we can. Now, Hunter had mentioned how identity has been rewritten, and it's been done in such a way that it's giving us more extensibility than before.
Yeah, so what I've got here is I've got an app, and this is running the Identity 2 stuff that we just shipped about a week ago. And it's got a ton of new features, and I'm going to show a few of these. The main feature I'm going to show today is, and you can see some of the features here. This is the configuration file, and you can see that I can choose all kinds of limits on what the length is, non-letter or digits, all kinds of restrictions on how strong your passwords might want to be. We now have this user lockout feature, which means if somebody tries to attack your user in your system, we'll make them slower and slower and slower. So at some point, they can't just do a dictionary attack. Mm-hmm. And then after they pause for a while, we'll back off. And we have a feature called two-factor auth. And if you want two-factor auth, all you got to do is write two methods in your application. We have a method for sending an email, and we need a method for sending a text message, potentially.
This is all configurable and pluggable.
All configurable. So I'm going to scroll down here. And I actually wrote this stuff already.
So you can tell when Hunter puts something in a region, it means he's ashamed of it. So just go ahead and close that up.
That needs to be closed
Nobody
down.
needs to see that.
So
anytime you call index of, it's a mistake.
So basically, you have a service inside of here called email service, and inside of it, it's got a method called sendAsync and that's whatever you want to have send your email messages. So I've got some code in there to do that, and then
you hide your phone number. Nice job.
I just hide my phone number.
You need to take that comment. And
yes, I will. I killed the comment.
It's good.
And so you also have to write one of these, which is SMS service, and that's how you send a message. And so I use Twilio in this case. I just grabbed off a NuGet, and so I've got my app. So if I run this,
so we've got Twitter and Google and Microsoft and Facebook and all those login identity things.
Right, I don't have those
pluggable.
turned on here, but you also, if you want, you can turn on all the social auths and stuff like that. I'm going to just register myself here.
Yeah, ASP.NET Identity is definitely not a toy right now. So you get your phone again? Is that what we're doing?
So what I do here is I've got a fake email address that I'll use here, and I'll create an account.
All right.
Okay, so as part of that, we've got the feature now where it's going to ask me to confirm my email. And so once again, I can go to my phone, and on my phone, I've got the email.
Yeah, he has an email. That's real.
That's real. We can even go in over here.
I was wondering why you just didn't open your email, but I don't know what you got in there.
And I felt my phone vibrate. I can do verify account. It said I'm verified, so I'm going to click here and log in.
None of this is faked, right? Just checking.
Nope, none of it's faked.
Because you can't really trust anyone right now.
So once I log in, I can actually use some other features that we have. I can come up here and click my name, and I'm going to go and add a phone number.
Nope, I'm going to hold the phone now.
And I will send a verification code.
So you're doing a trick. This is a trick because he's hiding his phone number. He actually pulled it out of a config file. There you go. Your security code is 109483. Oh, and then for demo purposes, you put it there as well.
It's there, but I want to show that the
It's
phone
different each time, though. It's not hard-coded.
It is, yes.
That is a real thing.
So now it's got my phone number and it's got my email, and so now I can actually enable two-factor auth. So that's now enabled. So if I log out now, and I log back in again,
okay. Okay.
It's going to ask me, how do I want to verify? Either email or phone. I'll say phone.
Cool. Yep. 909-265.
Show that it actually happened. I'm not just typing off the screen.
They can totally see that, by the way.
Hey, it shows that something on the phone.
Maybe I should just pretend to have it vibrate and go, ah, it worked.
Don't drop my phone.
I'm sorry.
Anyways, so you can see we've added a ton of features to Identity in this release. So
yeah. It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and all of it, you have lots and lots of choice. You can plug things in if you don't want to use Twilio. You want to plug things anyway. We've seen plugins for doing QR code, two-factor auth, time-based tokens.
We've done crazy demos where you could actually do screenshots of QR codes and stuff to do the two-factor auth.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually just put a QR code in a piece of paper in front of my face, and then I put it in front of the thing. That's facial recognition.
Actually, go to your slides for 1 second so I can make your next demo ready to go. Say something over here.
Say something?
Yes.
Something. What are we doing?
I'm going to make your next demo look.
He's taken over everything. Where's the clicker thing?
Where did you put the
There's
clicker?
only like 9,000 people watching this,
I know.
It's a totally polished demo. You are here at the What's New for ASP.NET, but this is a thing for you to take a picture of if you want to see other .NET related sessions at Build. All of these folks are very, very good speakers. You've got Miguel down here who's going to talk about C# and Xamarin. Mads Torgerson and Dustin are always fun to watch doing the future of C#. Really significant stuff about Roslyn coming up. Definitely want to check that out. Non-trivial. Now the big boss is Jay Schmelzer, and if you didn't get in there, go ahead and watch that on video.
That's all tomorrow.
Okay.
Here you go.
All right. What did you do? Did you type something mean? This is going to probably.
I reset the demo.
You reset the demo. Okay. I know that there's still meanness in here. I can feel it in the code. I just don't trust you. So Web API, I have been using Postman a lot. You guys use Postman, the plugin, the Chrome plugin for doing your, yeah, Postman's awesome. So I use Postman. It's a lovely REST client here. And it lets you go and fill out headers. It's kind of like TiVo or DVR for your web services. But I don't like having to build out these collections. It's tedious, and you want to have a way of having it describe your stuff. Some kind of a web services description language or WSDL that you could somehow, make your, just kidding.
Biggest request we get for Web API is for that exact feature.
I know. I'm so old. We did this before.
We're going to use JSON this time, though.
No, that's better. Curly braces are way better than angle brackets. You may remember that in ASP.NET Web API, we put in a help documentation thing that would basically reflect over your code. So it would look at the structure of your stuff here and say.
You can show the page. If you run the app, it'll show the page.
Oh, yeah, where is it? Let's do it.
Just Control F5 the app.
OK.
And click
oh, yeah, API. OK, this page here was generated. OK? And like all good pages,
it has no documentation.
of course not, because the code is the documentation. If anyone ever says that, you just smack them. So here, this has gone and reflected, and I say that in quotes like my son would say it, over the services. It's actually using internal configuration services. We know this. It's not really using reflection. And it's saying for each of these APIs and their descriptions. Now, what we're doing, though, is rather than outputting it in a help file here for human readable, we're going to present this in a way that is reasonable for Postman. Because Postman, where is Postman? Oh, API/Postman. Postman has a format on how a JSON format to describe your JSON. So this is your web services description stuff here. That's telling me here are the things available to us. And it's an interesting API, and you can extend it if you want. You can group them by verb or group them by controller type. It's totally up to you. So I can go in here and then say collections, import collection, and drop a file in that describes this if I wanted to, or say import a URL. So we've added this here, and there's a blog post about it on the web dev blog, and say import, and it says it worked. And then come back over here, and there is the complete structure of my ASP.NET Web API, presented in Postman in a format that Postman understands. So then now I could go and do something like post a product, right? And what do I need here? Name.
You need product ID.
Product ID is probably a good idea.
You need name. quantity.
How many Guthries do we have? Quantity.
We have more than we need.
We have more than we need. Don't let him hear you say that. So then we get the response back.
Yeah.
Now, if I put in, Hunter, is that a real number? The request is invalid.
Yes.
Right? So you're getting all of that experience here. And then, of course, I can take those, and they're in my history, and you get that nice kind of Postman experience. We'll go ahead and just put a normal number of Hunters in there. And now I can go back to get, call that, and then I get my Hanselman's, Hunters, and my Guthries back. So it's just a nice little example of how flexible ASP.NET Web API is, how it worked with other tools, like in this case Postman inside of Chrome, and allows you not only to, in this case, make a JSON file that gets imported into Postman, or a help file, or I've seen people generate Word documentation. I mean, whatever makes you happy, you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So we want to talk about, you're killing me.
Sorry.
EF 6.1. So EF 6.1 ships as part of this release, and as we said early in the presentation, we have taken these power tools that used to exist for EF and moved them into the product fully. In some ways, this would be the equivalent of one EF if you want to go down that path. So I'm just going to create a console app, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually launch the new EF tooling that we have. As I was saying before, we've been going to this model as web developers. We really enjoy code first, where you actually write your classes first instead of actually going and trying to mess with the database, and then we actually create the database for you. But a lot of folks want to go the other way. They already have a database, and they want to use the database, and they might even want to use the database with EF code first.
Well, there's also been questions about the maturity of code first. Is it sophisticated enough for a large enterprise database, or is this kind of thing that we're just going to try to do Northwind demos with forever?
So I'm going to go here and click Data, and I'm going to click ADO.NET Entity Model, and I'll just call this Build. I'll call it AdventureWorks. So we took one of the most complicated databases you could take, AdventureWorks, and what I'm going to do is, this is the one EF where I can decide of all the types of ways I can build stuff in EF. I can start with an empty code first model. I can start with code first from a database. I can use a designer if I want to use a designer.
Code first, second. It should be second, code second. Did anyone think about that?
No.
No, okay. I'm the first guy to mention that.
You are the first.
Okay.
So I've actually got a really complicated database on my machine already, AdventureWorks, and I'll click Next here. Yeah. I don't want to copy it.
No.
And now it's going to go look at that database, and I'm going to say, hey, I want all the tables, and I'll click Finish. And what's going to happen is that'll actually inject EF into my project, and it's going to go look at that database and build me an EF model that matches that database.
And this is a ridiculously large database.
This is a crazy database.
From a schema perspective. Okay.
So let's close this down, and you can see now I have a large data model. And if I look at my EF context, which I've got right here, it's got lots of tables.
And now these tables do have relationships between each other. This is just not a bunch of tables.
Now what's cool about this is EF's got this feature called migrations. And with migrations, I can actually have EF build the code to write that database. So if I actually took this app and copied it to Azure or copied it to some third-party machine, and the database wasn't there, we can recreate all the database, all the tables, all the relationships between those. And
so the equivalent of that initial script that you write in SQL.
Yes. So I can just do enable migrations. To enable migrations in Entity Framework.
You should make that font smaller.
Thank you. And I can say add migration. And we'll just call this one first.
Very small font.
And what's going to happen now is once that migration is created, that tells EF to go out and look and basically build me code that would generate the database. It's going to create a method called up and a method called down. So the up method will create everything. The down method would rip everything back away. If I didn't go change those classes again, it would create another up method that would do this. But if I look at this up method is pretty dang complicated. It's got, we've got tables.
Hang on, that's new. This is new?
Yeah, this is a new feature. If anybody's used EF code first before and wanted to have indexes, we now have an index attribute you can place on the columns you want to have indexed.
Okay.
And in this case, it's showing that it found the indexes on the existing table and created those index attributes for you. So it's created this huge up model. I could then go take this app, as I said, run it in Azure or run it on any machine that does not have this database,
right,
and it will recreate the entire database.
And then, of course, you can have multiple up migrations as your large data model becomes more complicated. It would just be a delta of that. So if you dropped an index or added an index, the next up would be in the migrations folder, and it would be smaller and more manageable.
Exactly. But this is showing that we can really now do really complicated enterprise-level databases with EF code first.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's see what we can do in the remaining time here. So one of the things that has happened lately is we've been embracing a project called OWIN, Open Web Interfaces in .NET. It's a project that was kind of started separately, and we've decided to jump in on that.
We did it kind of stealthily, actually. If you actually create a Web API project or a SignalR project with VS 2013, you're actually using OWIN. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
We just kind of put it in under the covers.
And we're putting it under the covers because while we want to focus on today and today's releases and things like that, we also need to think about what is an ASP.NET in the future going to look like.
Right.
And there's talk about where does the maturity of ASP.NET benefit us, because it's extremely fast, finely tuned CLR, and then when does it slow us down, right? When does the decisions made in 2002 affect an application written in 2014?
A great example of that is in 2002, we were trying to introduce people to the web. And so what we did is we took all the features we could think of and flipped them on by default. And so when you run an ASP.NET application, it's pretty heavy in some ways. It's still fast technology, but it's heavier than it needs to be because there's a lot of stuff running that you might not actually use. And so we're optimizing as we move towards the future. We're optimizing towards a model where nothing is on by default, and you basically opt yourself into as much as you want to opt yourself into.
Exactly. So SignalR and Web API are already using OWIN. You're likely already using this without maybe even realizing
right.
it. Yeah. And so here is the kind of the world's simplest OWIN application using ASP.NET, where we're just saying response.write async, this is a test, and it comes out. So if you've ever written an HTTP handler manually, this is kind of like
or if you've written Node.js code. This looks very similar to Node.js code.
That is a good point. It is a Node-y kind of
We basically handed you a socket and said, do what you want to do with the socket. There's no framework, there's no nothing.
And I even had to go and say the content, the content type. Nothing was done for me by default.
Yep.
Now, this is part of a chain of middleware that can be plugged in. Like I might want to plug in logging. So I could take this app builder interface and then add in some logger middleware for doing tracing, for example. And what that's doing is basically building this chain. So if you'll notice our logging middleware there, it derives from OWIN middleware. And it just gets called, and then it passes in a reference to the next thing in the chain.
Yeah.
So this is giving me an opportunity to jump in and do something. So I can say, here's where I start, and then go and do the next thing, and then here's where I'm done.
Right.
So if I go and run that.
In the debugger.
In the debugger, excuse me. I went full screen. And then go down to the output there. Now I've injected my middleware in. So I've kind of taken over that pipeline in a fundamental way. That's interesting, but what is more interesting, I think, would be to then start to plug in more significant stuff. So for example, I could go and do this and bring in Web API while then removing this, keeping the middleware in there, of course.
So what will happen is that middleware will take over. It will actually look at the URL and say, does this URL match anything that I understand?
Right.
If so, it'll run it. If not, it will pass it on to the next guy.
Right. So now I'm making calls using ASP.NET Web API, but this is significant, and we'll see a very visceral demo of this in a minute. There's less stuff involved. Web forms, MVC, the weight of the request is lighter. There's just simply less in between you and the metal. Right?
We're going to show a demo in a second, but we can get you down today, and a typical ASP.NET request is about 30K.
Right.
And we can get you down to 1K or 2K.
Yeah, exactly.
By not doing all that extra work.
Now, if you like .NET, but maybe you're not a fan of Web API, or you find that there's another product you might want to use, Nancy is a great open source project. It's called the Nancy project. It's based on Sinatra. And Nancy has a Web API that looks kind of like this. It's a totally different universe. It lets you describe your get. So we can plug that in and have Web API and Nancy living next to each other and have that totally be OK. And here, Nancy handled that request, and a /API/ something else would be handled in that case by Web API.
Try /API/home.
OK. See? And that
There you
is
go.
returning some XML. So here we've got open source project Nancy living next to Web API, living next to, if I wanted to, other stuff. Totally pluggable, totally lightweight.
So, imagine a future where things like the yellow screen of death page are something you plug into this, static file handling plugs into this, and you as a developer can basically opt into as much or as little as you want. Or you can say that some URLs use something and some other URLs use something else.
Right.
So we're modularizing ASP.NET.
And we're modularizing it so much that we can get rid of any pieces that you might, for your particular application, think are extraneous.
Right.
So in this example here, I've gone and taken that hello world and then extended it to go and say, for each assembly in the current domain. So we're looking at the current app domain and listing out all of the assemblies that are here. Okay? So I'm going to just run that. And here is just a text dump of all of the things that are involved. So you're getting system.xml, you're getting system.web, caching, Microsoft.JScript. You're getting all of the historical weight of ASP.NET that makes line of business applications like web forms and powerful MVC applications work. But if you're trying to do an on-the-metal Web API or SignalR hub, you just don't need
You're paying those penalties, right?
Right. So we want to make things, the goal here is to get you to understand it's about choice. Plug in just what you need, and of course, the law of scale, right? If you do less, you can do more.
Right.
So in that case, I don't know how many that is, but it's a big number because I had to scroll.
Right.
So now I'm going to plug in a thing called Helios. I guess I can do it from the command line here.
It's already there, I think.
Oh, look at you typing stuff ahead of time, boss. Look at me zooming in for people who can't see. So we're going to say, don't use the system web ON host. Instead, use the IIS ON host. This is basically removing system.web as a factor.
That's correct. So what happens is IIS will basically call directly into this app without calling through system.web.
Exactly. So system.web is just no longer involved.
No longer involved.
Okay? So that's the number of assemblies now in that request. And you'll notice
there is no system web anywhere.
There's no system.web, just the absolute minimum of what you want. You bring in just the pieces that you want, and then you can go and bring in Nancy, bring in SignalR, bring in MVC, bring in whatever makes you happy that works with Element.
In some artificial benchmarks we did, this reduced the amount of artificial benchmark, meaning an app that just returns hello world,
micro benchmark,
and you beat the heck out of it. Our memory usage went down by 90%, and our request per second went up by 60%.
So that means system.web, a request is about 30K?
Yep.
And using codename Helios, that's just a code name, using ON, the request is how big?
It can be 1 to
2K?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just about the weight of it. And then if you have less memory, you have less churn, you have less garbage collection. CLR can do more because it's doing less.
Right. And in the future, later this year, you'll see us do more and more, moving more of our frameworks and more of our stuff to the ON model, to the point where you can basically opt in and opt out as much stuff as you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, again, is the .NET sessions that are happening tomorrow. Be sure to watch Mads Christensen in tomorrow's keynote talking more about Azure and ASP.NET and web tools and some of the cool stuff that we're doing, especially on Azure websites. And everything that we've shown you, we've got a bit.ly bundle in that lower right corner. Feel free to take a picture of that. That is a bundle. It's a link of links. bit.ly.com, build 2014 web tools. We will continue to update that if we forgot something.
Yeah, maybe we'll just put the samples up there. All the samples that we have run on
We'll give you all that.
If you have update 2, you can run all the samples we showed today.
So everything we showed was update 2, Web Essentials, and then also within that bit.ly bundle is the source code for the web form scaffolder, which we didn't get a chance to show, but that will run as well. So if you're a web forms developer and you want to do scaffolding with your models, you can do that today as well. We just put that out. Cool?
That's cool.
All right. Thank you so much for spending your hour with us. We are the Scots. Be sure, please, to check out Azure Friday, and so that I still have a job, do scan the only QR code that you really need.
They also told us that they're going to throw us off the stage right at 30 seconds from now.
So I guess we have to go.
So if you want to chat with us, we're going to walk out, and you're welcome to follow us. And
yeah, we'll answer questions out there. We've got to free this up for the next folks. Thank you very much, everybody.